Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18. Well-known political analyst Neerja Chowdhury is a veteran journalist who has seen the workings of more than 6 prime ministers very closely, from Indira Gandhi to Rajiv, to VP Singh, to Narasimha Rao, to Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh. In her latest book, How Prime Ministers Decide, she traces some of the most difficult and some of the most controversial decisions taken by Indian prime ministers over the last few decades. Let's go across to her now. Ms. Chowdhury, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin with Indira Gandhi, who lost her election in March 1977. She was not even an MP after that. And that's when she met Kapil Mohan and Anita Bali of Mohan Meakin in her lawns at her bungalow in New Delhi. You write she was morose, sad, and even wanted to retire to Himachal Pradesh in a cottage. Tell us how she staged her comeback, how a sex scandal involving the son of her political opponent played a big part.
You know, after Indira Gandhi lost the elections, and it is tantalizing even today why she declared elections in 1977. Now she was very, as you say, morose, depressed to begin with. And she wanted to retire to the Himalayas, maybe write her memoirs. What she was really worried about was what would happen to her son Sanjay Gandhi, who had been the power behind the throne, unconstitutional authority during the emergency years. And she even saw Prime Minister Morarji Desai telling him this, that she was willing to retire, but that Sanjay should be safe. They said no harm would come to him physically, but of course they launched cases, and the Shah Commission, that famous Shah Commission, to probe the excesses of the emergency and cases against her, R.K. Dhawan, Sanjay Gandhi, and so on. It was when they took action against Sanjay Gandhi that she decided to fight back. So far we have believed that it was the differences between the top leaders of the Janata Party, Morarji Desai, Kisan leader Charan Singh, Dalit leader Jagjeevan Ram, that were responsible for the fall of the Janata government in 1979. But the moves and the maneuvers and the manipulation, what I call the Sam Dam Dand Bhed, that she used against these leaders, and she intensified the differences among them, that is the fascinating story of how she came back to power in 33 months. She had been routed all over North India in 1977, and she came back with a whopping 353 seats, much more than what she'd got in the election after the Bangladesh victory. So, and the parts, the parts of that strategy, what you refer to, one is getting Raj Narayan, who was her main opponent, who had defeated her in 77 and earlier was responsible for her being unseated from parliament in a case where she was charged for electoral malpractices. She won this man, socialist maverick leader, to her side, and he was the one-man demolition squad responsible for the implosion in the Janata government. Then she got Jayaprakash Narayan. She neutralized JP, as he was called. JP had led the Bihar movement of young people, students, against corruption, for electoral reforms, and so on, calling for resignation, which really culminated in her declaring the emergency. And the way she went to see him and how she managed this whole situation, that JP after that never made a statement against her, essentially because he was very disillusioned with the Janata leaders, and he felt that his battle had been political, and this would not affect personal relations that he held with earlier Jawaharlal Nehru, who he used to call Bhai, and Indira Gandhi, who he referred to as Indu. So JP, and then this very fascinating thing that you referred to, the sex scandal involving Jagjeevan Ram's son, which, explicit photographs that were used in the magazine brought out by Sanjay Gandhi's wife, Menaka Gandhi, which went, which was, as you would call today, went viral. Mainstream media did not touch it very much, and it embarrassed Jagjeevan Ram. It was a major setback for Jagjeevan Ram. Indira Gandhi used to believe at that time that Jagjeevan Ram could replace Morarji Desai in the Janata Party, and that would impede her comeback. And she had often said, if you allow a Dalit and somebody like Jagjeevan Ram with huge administrative experience to sit in the Prime Minister's seat, it will be very difficult to remove him. So these three things, and finally having lost the support of the Muslims through enforced sterilization during the emergency, she went on to Hinduize her persona and her politics. So those were the four reasons which were responsible for her comeback in 1980.
All right, beautifully explained, Ms. Chowdhury. Let me move on to Rajiv Gandhi. You've written in your book that naivety marked Rajiv Gandhi's early decision. Explain us how, by acting on the Shah Bano judgment of the court and also enabling the opening of locks of the Babri Masjid, he may have unintentionally allowed the rise of the BJP.
You know, the Shah Bano judgment was one of those innocuous judgments which are taking place every day. Here is this old Muslim woman, married for 45 years with 5 children, and she is divorced by her husband, and she goes to court for maintenance, not under the Muslim personal law, but under the CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code of the country, under a section that provides for succor to destitutes, and Muslim women included in that category. And this had the Muslim community up in arms. By the way, the Supreme Court had also made a reference to the need for a uniform civil code, which again agitated the Muslims. And so Rajiv Gandhi, to undo the damage of the Shah Bano case judgment, he went in for a Muslim women bill, and then the Hindus got very agitated, and he decided to placate them, and to balance this, he facilitated the opening of the locks at the Babri Masjid, Ram Janmabhoomi disputed structure, allowing Hindus worship, direct worship. Now, you asked how did it hurt him and lead to the rise of the BJP? You know, when he came to power, he came as a breath of fresh air. He was futuristic. He wanted to take India to the 21st century. He brought down the voting age to 18. He set up technology missions. He enacted the anti-defection law. Several things, Assam Accord, Punjab Accord, Mizoram Accord, dealing with problems that had dogged the country for a very long time. But caste and community was something I don't think he fully understood, and without experience he was politically naive. So he fell between two stools of caste and community. He neither could please the Muslims nor could he please the Hindus. And his tally in 1989 came down from 414 seats, an unbroken record, to 197, with his own finance minister Vishwanath Pratap Singh, who rebelled against him, replacing him as the Prime Minister of India.
Right. And about VP Singh, the next Prime Minister we speak about, you've referred to him as a crafty politician, someone you could never figure out which side he really stood or gauge his loyalties. In his own words, he said that there were no loyalties in politics, there are only convergence of interests. How he became the Prime Minister remains a fairy tale. That's what you write. You have said that his term as Prime Minister was marked by mayhem, Mandal and Mandir. Tell us about his most controversial decision which has impacted India to date.
His controversial decision was to enact the Mandal Commission's report, which had been gathering dust since Indira Gandhi's time, giving 27% reservation in government jobs to the OBCs. And that was, it was resisted by the upper caste. The BJP and the Congress initially also was behind this agitation. Later they, became a little, they didn't know how to oppose it, so they opposed the manner in which it was done. And it has led, what you say, the empowerment of the OBCs gained pace under VP Singh, and I would say the BJP would not be what it is today. It would probably be a Brahmin Banya party, but for what Vishwanath Pratap Singh. Now power is moving down from OBCs to the most backward, to the Mahadalits, to the Pasmanda Muslims, to communities that have been on the peripheries of power. He used to say, you know, it's not good enough to give tokenistic representation. What these communities want is satta mein shirkat. And so he was very controversial, and that led. I have one other thing I have documented in this chapter on VP Singh is that Mandal was a response to Mandir. Mandir was not a response to Mandal, as is often said. And I go into that whole question of why so. And that the decision to hold the Rath Yatra had been planned in June of that year, and Mandal came only 5 weeks later. And I quote BJP leaders there. So VP Singh created a national alternative to the Congress party. Many Congress leaders had left the Congress party in the past. Ramakrishna Hegde, Mamata Banerjee, Sharad Pawar, Jagan Reddy. They became chief ministers of their states. Vishwanath Pratap, of course, Chandrasekhar had also left and became prime minister, but with the help of the dominant Congress. Vishwanath Pratap Singh actually created a national alternative, you know, bringing the right, left and the center parties on one platform. And as I said, the Congress never got a majority on its own after that. Narasimha Rao got a majority by breaking other parties. And since then, the Nehru-Gandhi family has never headed a government. So he dealt a body blow to the Congress.
Right. So VP Singh dealt a body blow to the Congress party. An interesting take from Mandal to Mandir as well, Ms. Chowdhury. I'd like to ask you about P.V. Narasimha Rao and how he failed to protect the Babri Masjid. And this was, according to you, the ultimate non-decision by a sitting Prime Minister. What, according to you, led him to act in this manner?
You know, I start that chapter by quoting Nikhil Chakravarti, an eminent journalist who'd gone to see him with 3 other journalists. And Nikhil Chakravarti told him, we hear that on 6th December when the Babri Masjid was brought down, you were sleeping or doing puja. And this provoked Narasimha Rao to say, Dada, I was born in Rajniti, I know what Rajniti is about, and I allowed this to happen so that the Mandir politics of the BJP would be over forever. That now, you know, he realized that the Hindu flag that the BJP was playing on was something that needed to be taken out of his hand, and he thought it was a he probably thought it was a festering store. If it went away, then the Mandir politics of the BJP would be dented. Now, during his tenure, this did happen. Mandir took a back seat, and BJP lost in elections a year later in North India, several elections. But how it hurt the psyche of the minorities, that the Indian constitution and the Indian state had failed to give them protection. That was a long-term damage, and by bringing down the masjid by groups of people whose identity is not known even till today, it allowed the VHP and the BJP to taste blood. And as we know later, just as the Shah Banu, what happened during the Rajiv Gandhi era, fueled the Hindu nationalism, so also this part, the demolition, was to later fuel Hindu nationalism and lead to the rise of the BJP. And Narasimha Rao actually wanted to build a temple there himself. And he got a trust registered of Hindu sects and groups, but he decided in 1995 it was too close to the elections, and if he came back to power, he would do that.
Very interesting insights. I don't think too many people are aware that there was this conversation that Narasimha Rao had with journalists. He knew what was happening and allowed it to happen saying that this is Rajniti. Speaking about Atal Bihari Vajpayee, you have written about how he carried out the nuclear tests on the 11th and 13th of May, a decision that all prime ministers except Indira Gandhi had decided against. What gave him the confidence to do so?
You know, one very interesting thing is what was Narasimha Rao briefing him. You know, outgoing prime minister supposed to brief the incoming one on issues, vital issues, including the nuclear issue. And Narasimha Rao, in fact, Vajpayee, normally Narasimha Rao would have gone to see Vajpayee, but Vajpayee insisted that I will come and call on you. And he told Vajpayee everything was ready and it is, you can go ahead with it now, even though he had not yet proved his majority. So that was one factor. Secondly, you know, these prime ministers were aware of the fact that if the CTBT, the Comprehensive Ban Treaty, was enacted, which was on the cards, it was later that it was put on the back burner, then the window of opportunity would be lost for India. This was the time to test and be considered a nuclear half state. So this was a consideration for Narasimha Rao, this was a consideration for Vajpayee. Vajpayee in 1979, as the External Affairs Minister under Morarji Desai, had actually voted in the CCPA against going nuclear. In 50s, he was a peacenik. He wrote this poem called Hiroshima Ki Pida. In 60s, he spoke in Parliament saying an atom bomb is the answer to an atom bomb is an atom bomb. This was after the Chinese tested. And 70s, he was against it. 98, he went in for a nuclear test. And the timing of in 1998, many people said, was due to the problems he was facing in his coalition. He was buffeted around by the allies so much that he may have felt, do it now, apart from the national security consideration, do it now because it would quieten all these allies who were making life miserable for him.
Right. Speaking about Manmohan Singh, and he's often been criticized, written about as a prime minister who didn't have real control over his government, how the remote control was with 10 Janpath or Sonia Gandhi and Ahmed Patel at all times. What was the understanding between Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh when it came to running the government, running the political scene in the country, and also how was he able to put his foot down when it came to the nuclear deal with the United States?
Look, that is a very fascinating story about Manmohan Singh, how he also doggedly didn't give up. And again, for 3 years and more, Sonia Gandhi, the process had really been started during Vajpayee's time. And for the US to do this, US looked at India as a counterfoil to China. So they were interested in India. India was looking at a strategic relationship with the US, deepening that relationship, and Indo-US nuclear deal was one methodology to do it. And Sonia Gandhi was against it initially because the left parties opposed it very frontally, and then at a later stage, of course, threatened to withdraw support to the UPA government, which would have meant the Manmohan Singh government would have gone, and Sonia Gandhi didn't want that to happen. But Manmohan Singh used, again, every trick in the book that you would not associate with him, using fixers, using, he weaned away the Samajwadi Party, which was opposing the deal. He brought them to his side. Amar Singh was his conduit. Amar Singh was this very colorful member of parliament who hated to be called a fixer. He thought he was a class above all of it. And he helped in getting the Samajwadi Party. Mulayam Singh Yadav, also APJ Abdul Kalam spoke in favor of the deal to provide the Samajwadi Party a fig leaf. So in order to support the government. So Manmohan Singh showed a side to him, a killer instinct, when he set his mind to something, that he could actually achieve it. But that's not a side of Manmohan Singh that we saw vis-a-vis any other decision. Sonia Gandhi was looking after the political side, Sonia Gandhi and the party. Ahmed Patel was very irritated at many points, saying, what is Dr. Saab doing? He's supposed to look after governance and administration. It's the party. We are supposed to look after politics, but that's not the way it happens. The Prime Minister also deals with politics. But I think apart from a strategic relationship with the US, apart from all the other considerations, security consideration, I feel that Manmohan Singh, but his determination to see this through, and remember, he had the support of George Bush, the US president. There was a chemistry between the two of them which also played a role. But Manmohan Singh, by seeing it through, was also somewhere demonstrating that he could be his own man.
Right. So he showed killer instinct with the nuclear deal, and that was probably a turning point in the India-US relationship, and we continue to see fruits of that to date and in future as well. And finally, I'll speak about Narendra Modi. You've not written about Narendra Modi as you feel that this is still a work in progress, and your analysis is something that you're still working on and is evolving. But how has been Narendra Modi's attitude, approach to governance, to administration been different from the other prime ministers that India has had in its history, and probably one major decision that he would be remembered by?
I think he would be remembered by several decisions. His decision to demonetize was a big decision. Abrogation of Article 370 was a big decision. There are many decisions of his that should be studied, scrutinized. I decided not to do, I actually decided by, initially I thought I would do it. But very soon I realized that it would be difficult and not do justice, because as an incumbent Prime Minister, there are very few people who actually know what's going on and how decisions are made, who would talk freely about an incumbent. And most of the people who talked to me about the other prime ministers had done so after they demitted office. So as you've said, I felt it was work in progress, and I didn't have the benefit of hindsight to make an assessment. But your question is that how was he different? How was he similar to the other prime ministers, and how was he different? I think he was similar in many ways. Indira Gandhi, he's often compared to a tough leader, a strong prime minister's office through which he and Indira Gandhi worked. As far as Narasimha Rao went, he carried on the policies of economic liberalization, but towards the end of his term, Narasimha Rao also used to say that they had led to disparities, and we needed to find, and Manmohan Singh also used to say, we needed to find the middle path. Narendra Modi has also gone for social welfareism, packages to give relief to the poor, along with the liberalization, the measures for liberalization. VP Singh, he's taken the process of mandalization further down, as he's wooing the MBCs and the Pasmanda Muslims and the Dalits, certain categories amongst the Dalits. So that process is devolving. And Manmohan Singh, certainly strategic relationship, a different relationship with the US. I mean, his recent visit to the US proved that. That is also a process he's carrying forward, but he's also different. He has loomed very large in the Indian consciousness. And political marketing, the use of new media, the latest communication skills, the PR companies, he knew the value of optics, and he used that more effectively than any of the other prime ministers. Of course, Indira Gandhi, social media was not available, but he has made that into a science and an art and used this. But essentially, he's different because his is a civilizational project, what they call moving towards a Hindu Rashtra. So it is very different from the other prime ministers Nehru, of course, was very different. He believed in a different set of values. Indira Gandhi also called herself secular, but knew what the Hindu sentiment and how to play it so that she wouldn't come across as anti-Hindu or anti-Muslim. She did that very effectively. So, but essentially it is that. And he's brought about a paradigm shift in Indian politics. And I sometimes say this, that we haven't fully understood yet. Of course, he stands for Hindutva, nationalism, national pride, social welfareism, empowerment of the OBC. He himself is an OBC prime minister, strong leadership, what I call the subalternization of Indian politics when power is moving downwards. Today, many in small town India, big village India identify with him because they have aspirations to make it big. There is a flip side, of course, you know, with the minorities feeling very beleaguered and insecure. But I think we need to understand the Modi phenomenon much more, because I feel somewhere it is linked to a changing India, which we have to comprehend more fully.
All right, so the Modi phenomenon linked to a changing India, which we need to understand better. But thank you so much, Ms. Chowdhury, for joining us, telling us about the key decisions and what drove them when it comes to different prime ministers, starting from Indira Gandhi. Thank you once again for joining us, telling us about your book, How Prime Ministers Decide. It was great to have you on our program.
Thank you for having me.